Where when you start out, all the moss is pretty damp.
Damp, not soaking wet, just damp, so you can work with it. Yeah, it's easier to work with when it's a bit damp.
Okay. And what about the bottle? You said something about a bottle. What's that?
You saw in the video he had the moss over a bottle. Is that what you
I
meant?
didn't. His hands were too fast.
So he made a pancake of moss and put it onto the bottle, and he was using the bottle to mount the Neo on. And when he takes out the bottle, then there's a hole inside.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. You can pot the second video which he made, which I have of him, he just puts moss all around the roots, wraps the roots with long moss. Then he says, just take your finger and make a hole. And then he shoves it into a pot and you're done with it. So the point is to have the hole, right? You don't have to use the bottle if you don't want to.
Mine grows better without having that moss built up. I killed a couple of those.
Yeah, whatever works for you. I mean, I've seen them growing on rocks.
Good, because mine are about 3 years old.
Then do whatever you were doing. That's what I always say about any orchids.
Thank you. Interesting presentation. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else before we move over to Lynn and show and tell? All right, Lynn, you're on.
Thank you, Terry, very much.
Thank you.
Glad we could finally get you here.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next time in person, maybe.
Yes.
Ta-da.
You
Good
see
job.
it?
Yes, very good.
Yes. You can see it on the screen now?
Yep, perfectly. Yep.
Huh, I can't. Okay, so.
Oh, maybe it's your other screen.
Yeah, okay. So we have another gorgeous and varied show and tell table tonight starring 62 stunning orchids from 22 contributors. And there's a lot in bloom in May, so I had to cut back the number of orchids per exhibitor. Hope no one's offended. So let's get started. The order in which you see them is the order in which I received them. I'm not getting it to change. Can you see that? Can you see a maxillaria now?
Yes, yes.
All righty, good. So David Chi sent me this photo a few days after our last meeting, which was his first meeting. And he said he was awed with the beauty of what he saw. David is new to the hobby, and this Maxillaria tenuifolia he bought from Andy's Orchids earlier this year. This is a really rewarding little species from Mexico and Central America, where it's found in rainforests and semi-deciduous forests from sea level to about 3,300 feet. And I keep talking about elevation and conditions because that gives us clues about how we should grow it. So this is an intermediate grower. This is a great windowsill plant. It grows and flowers readily and is called the coconut orchid because of its very distinctive coconut aroma, which to me smells like copper tone on the beach. These are Judy Carney's gorgeous Laelia intermedia. It looks like she has 3 or 4 plants in bloom here. Intermedia is a Brazilian.
I'm not getting full screen.
You're not. Is anybody else getting full screen?
No.
No.
What we're seeing like the presentation not running as a presentation.
Did that do anything?
That made it smaller.
No,
That puts you, but that gives us your notes.
You don't want that.
The secret's out. No.
Yeah. Hey, you don't think I memorized this, do you?
Lynn, basically the issue is you need to stop sharing. When you reshare, select the show that's already in full screen and it'll give us the full screen.
So I can go to new share?
Well, stop sharing first.
I don't see that as an option. Stop video. Pause share.
Screen.
Stop share. There we go. Stop share.
Now, when you say share, you say share screen.
But I just view slideshow first, right?
Well, no. Yeah, well, yeah, if you've already, you need to have already started, sorry, you need to have already started the slideshow.
Okay,
Now, can
Let's
you
try.
see a full screen slide somewhere?
does that work?
No.
No.
Yep, that worked.
All righty. And what are you seeing? Full
Perfect.
screen?
You got it.
Got it.
You're seeing full screen?
Got it. Yeah.
Yes,
perfect.
No notes. Okay. So these are Judy Carney's Laelia intermedia. It looks like she has 3 or 4 plants in bloom here, little different varieties of them. This is a Brazilian species. It's found near the East Coast at low levels, where it grows in very high light, almost in full sunlight, but with a lot of air movement in the upper branches of the host tree or the shrub where it's growing. The Baker notes on this say it's also found on rocks and on the ground where the sand dunes are covered with trees and brush. So this would suggest that it wants intermediate temperatures, but it's a pretty adaptable plant. It can adapt to cooler temperatures, possibly even outdoors in the Bay Area. Now it's not changing for me. Come on.
Click it, the mouse. No.
No.
Your down arrow?
I'm trying that.
Try clicking on the
Try one more
picture
thing.
on the screen.
That do it?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
There we go.
This is Judy's Cattleya Nobilior, also from Brazil. This grows at low elevations above large permanent rivers. Water vapor from the river is carried aloft, keeping the humidity high in Nobilior's microclimate and providing some moisture even during the long dry season. So as you can see on the left, while the rainfall requirements show that it needs a dry rest for several months in winter, humidity is very important. Judy, this is a beautiful flowering of it because Nobilior has dozens of AOS awards, nearly all of them with just 1 or 2 flowers on a single inflorescence. So this is an applause. This is Judy's Jazzrenathra Storyi, another Brazilian species. This one is vandaceous and is from the cool coastal mountains. It can take nighttime temperatures down into the low 40s with much less water in the winter. It also needs very bright light, over 4,000 foot candles ideally. Cetrina is much less common in collections than some of the other Renathra species, and you can see the delightful little lemon yellow flowers, hence the name Cetrina, with reddish purple spots and blotches on it. Judy grows this in her intermediate greenhouse. This is Judy's Ascocentrum. It's been moved to Vanda, sadly. Kingianum, a species from Vietnam, where it's found only from 350 to 500 feet above sea level in dry, dusty, lowland, semi-deciduous monsoon forest. So it's dry, and then it's dry if you look at the precipitation chart. And then you have to make a monsoon in September and December, September through December. This is a warm grower that likes bright light, slat basket culture with little or no medium. It just needs to be anchored into the basket and then given a support to climb on. The blush pink flowers are about 3/4 of an inch. And it's interesting to see the little blooming keikis up and down Judy's plant. Dale Martin shows us Dendrobium Uniformum. Uniform, the name means single flower dendrobium because there's just 1 flower per inflorescence. It's found in Southeast Asia, Laos, Thailand, Borneo, as a warm grower with flowers that are about 1 inch, with clear brownish red keels or ridges on the lip to attract the pollinator to climb up inside and capture that anther cap. It's very cute. Dale's Paph Ho Chi Minh. It isn't hard to guess where that one's from the name. It's primarily a hybrid of 2 species that I show in the bottom right. 2 species from Vietnam, Nadae and Vietnamese. It should be a good windowsill grower as it requires only shaded to dappled light and intermediate temperatures. And those big round petals are just a delight. Dale loves his multifloral paphs, and here is his Pathopetalum, which is a primary hybrid of Hainaldianum and Philippinense. This is a highly awarded cross. We saw it last month. Dale sent us a picture last month with just one flower open. So seeing this full display of 5 open flowers is really beautiful. The flowers are about 5 inches wide, even longer with those beautifully marked ribbon-like pendant petals.
It's actually 6.
Are there 6?
Yeah, one way
With
up
a
on top.
bud, including the
Up
bud?
on top.
The bud, yeah,
Yeah.
very nice. This is Tom Pickford's Archophyllum giganteum, giganteum being the operative word. This is not a windowsill grower. This plant is over 2 feet tall, and Tom's has 17 spikes, each about 18 inches tall with about 225 flowers on each spike. Archophyllum is a genus with 5 species found from Mexico to Colombia with leathery leaves and a densely flowered cylindrical raceme of bright flowers. Tom grows it in his cool greenhouse with night temperatures into the very low 40s. Asca grew his outdoors in San Francisco, protected from the winter rains. We don't often see these on the judging table because it takes a truck to haul it around. Tom got this plant from Neil Tadlock in 2010. And he says he loves to see the reaction of people seeing it for the first time because it's really a showstopper. This is Tom's, I heard some applause there, good. This is Tom's Wixsiella discolor. It seems that Wixsiella is a genus of 11 species that have been carved out of Chondrorhynchos and Cochleanthes. So many of us would know this or recognize it as Cochleanthes discolor. And the clonal name Lil, in 1989, Lil and Henry Severin, longtime SFOS members, had this awarded an AM of 80 points with 2 flowers and 2 buds. Tom has 3 flowers here, I think. This is a species from Panama and Costa Rica. Grows as an epiphyte from 2,300 feet of elevation to 7,500 feet. So it's happy and cool to warm temperatures. Could be a good windowsill grower. Tom grows it in his cool greenhouse. Susan Anderson shows us Herchisis Lamingia. This is one of my favorites. This is an epiphytic species from Mexico, named for a Belgian botanist named Lamingia. The pseudobulbs are cigar-shaped. I don't know if you can see them very well in these photos, with pleated, mostly deciduous leaves. The inflorescence arises from the side of an old pseudobulb as a new one arises there. The flowers are about 3 inches. They're waxy, long-lasting, and very fragrant. Species is found close to sea level and needs warm conditions to thrive. Medium light. This is Susan's Dendrobium little Atro, which is Roy Tokunaga's H&R nurseries in Hawaii. It's one of Roy's primary hybrid cross of Dendrobium normanbiense and Atro violaceum. And as we can see from Susan's plant, it thrives when completely pot-bound. This is not a plant that wants to be repotted every year or two. Susan's plant here was even more impressive in person in her intermediate greenhouse. Roy wowed us at POE in 2013. He brought one that won a Cultural Excellence Award with 369 flowers. The plant was the size of a Volkswagen, if anybody remembers it. The same year he had one awarded in Oahu with over 1,000 flowers. So windowsill growers, look for this one if you can continue to make space for it. It's a really rewarding bloomer. Beautiful. This is Susan's adorable little Lycaste campbellii. This is a miniature species from Panama and Colombia, where it grows in shady spots close to sea level near marshes and beaches, so it wants good humidity. It's deciduous, and when the leaves drop, I don't know if you can see on the far left-hand side, when the leaves drop off, it leaves a sharp spike. And the Lycastes that leave that sharp spike are the ones that have to have a dry winter rest until after they flower and the new leaves emerge. The flowers are about 1 inch and they have a lovely fragrance. This is Susan's Potentara Egyptian Queen. Potentara is a complex hybrid, also known as Rhyncholaleo Cattleya. Because of the complexity of its parentage, Egyptian Queen comes in a wide variety of color forms from deep burgundy to lemon yellow. Susan shows a really lovely resemblance, I think, to the Cattleya bicolor parent with that bright magenta lip. It looks like she has 4 or more flowers on the spike. Very nice. Andrea Laudate shows us Pleurothallus, not sure I'm saying this right, Lilliai. This is a miniature sized species from Venezuela, where it was discovered at 8,500 to 9,700 feet. So from that altitude, it needs cool to cold temperatures, good for the outdoors in the Bay Area. Andrea grows hers outdoors. The flower is about a half an inch, and what a pretty shade of blue that is. This is Andrea's Dendrobium Kingianum, a mini form. This is an Australian species, which is very popular growing outdoors with cymbidiums in the Bay Area. This one's a nice deep magenta with a white picotee on the lip margins. Andrea has this Cymbidium hybrid growing outdoors. It's sitting on top of her fountain, if you can see the water there. In the eastern sun, it obviously likes the humidity where she has it. Jeff Harris, Jeff with a G, shows us Paphiopedilum Julius, the unusual vinicolor form compared to the typical color on the left. The vinicolor is more like wine, vinny. It's plummy with a distinctly purple lip. This is really beautiful. This is an intermediate to warm growing species from Vietnam, and it's been used in over 450 progeny. Hybridizers love Delenatii for the full round petals and the round fat pouch. The flower can be over 3 inches wide, and this is a really lovely one, Jeff. This is Jeff's Masdevallia Coccinea, the alba form. Again, Jeff shows us an unusual color form. The name Coccinea means scarlet, and the usual color form is shown at the left. This is a species endemic to Colombia, where it's found at 8,000 to 11,000 feet. So it prefers cool temperatures, cool nights into the low 40s, and it needs shade or filtered light. The flower is about 2 inches wide by about 4 inches long, including the tails. Jeff's Cattleya Lunamaniana is a species from the central coast of Venezuela, where it's a warm to hot growing epiphyte with 1 or 2 huge flowers per inflorescence. They can be up to 5 inches. Wow, and the lemon lip with the deep magenta markings make it really beautiful. It has a lovely floral aroma. So what's not to love about Lunamaniana? That's gorgeous. Jeff shows us 2 color forms of Laelia jungiana, a species from Brazil where it's considered rare. And it's perhaps, in my view, the most striking of all the Laelias, also one of the fussiest to grow. It's best grown mounted, cool temperatures, very bright light, lots of water while it's growing. The flowers are about 5 or 6 inches, and they're really large for the size of the plant. The very long, frilled, downward pointing lip has 7 orange keels, and these are just lovely. Heidi Arno shows us her Dendrobium Kingianum, which she purchased in 2019 at POE. This is the first time it's bloomed for her, and it is a lovely shade of blush pink. Heidi, the flowers will last longer if you don't water Kingianum while it's blooming. Kingianums are happiest growing outdoors in the Bay Area, protected from heavy rain, if we ever have any heavy rain. This is Heidi's Cymbidium Unemployed Pilot, which is a hybrid registered by Andy Easton in 2018, and it leaves one wondering why the name Unemployed Pilot. I don't know. Heidi bought this from Ron Norris in 2020. She said, besides the bloom, she bought it for the name. Who thinks of these names anyway? Heidi purchased this Cymbidium years ago from a Central Valley grower, and it blooms for her every year. She grows her Cymbidiums outdoors in Modesto, in the southeast corner of her patio under shade cloth for much of the year. Her plant tag says the Cymbidium Moria Alhalia Elizabeth Irvine. The name that I've put on the slide is the closest match I could find to the name Cymbidium Moria Athalia Elizabeth. I couldn't find any Irvine. Larry Roberts shows us Cattleya intermedia Equinii cerulean, which he says he's had since he bought it at a SF Orchid Society event before COVID. It's finally blooming after producing a number of empty bud sheaths. The Equinii form has flammea splash petals, as you can see here, or it's peloric, meaning that it has a mutation. So the 2 side petals have the splash pattern like the lip. The petals mimic the color and the form of the lip, and they pull forward more than in a typical intermediate. The species is found in Atlantic coastal forests and sand dunes in Brazil, from sea level to almost the frost zone. So it can grow in a wide variety of temperatures. The ceruleiform is a really lovely color. This is Eileen Jackson's Rhyncholaleo Cattleya or Brassolaelia Digbyano purpurata. This is a primary hybrid of Laelia purpurata and Brassavola digbyana. It was registered in 1898 and received its first award and only award in 2009 with a big 5-inch flower. So it's a novelty hybrid we don't get to see often. It gets all of those great lip ruffles from the Digbyana parent. Eileen has had it since 2014 and grows it in her intermediate greenhouse, and it has never bloomed before. She says she recently moved it to a higher shelf and was worried because the leaves became very red, which told her it was getting too much sun, but then boom, it bloomed. So I guess it wanted all that bright light. And from our president, Jeff with a J, Harris, this is Restrepia, either Gucciolata or Landsbergii. Jeff is not sure which. So if anyone can give him a positive ID, please send him a chat message. I think it's Gucciolata, but I'm not positive. Either way, it's a cool growing species from South America. Grows well outdoors, protected in the Bay Area with water all year round. This is a great close-up photo because it really shows off the two lateral sepals that come down in the front. They're fused together into that long skirt below the burgundy colored forked lip. It's really an interesting structure. And this is Jeff's Dendrobium thriciflorum with a spiraling pendant spike with 30 graceful white 1.5-inch flowers with golden yolky lips, not to mention the asymmetrical spindle-shaped pseudobulbs. This is from Southeast Asia, found at 5,000 to 6,500 feet, so prefers sort of cool temperatures. Jeff bought this plant from Mary Garrettson, grows it in his warm greenhouse with a dry rest. This is just Dendrobium leucocyanum, a mini miniature, really tiny, cool growing species from Papua New Guinea with pale ice blue flowers. In fact, the name means the white blue dendrobium. Over time, this will form a creeping mat over the cork mount. Jeff grows this little beauty cool with his Cuthbertsonii and his Draculas in his fog house under the backyard deck. This is Dave Hermeyer's Bicolor Lepotes Glacier Sweet Star. As you can see on the right, it's a very complex hybrid made over 50 years ago. And the hybridizer has taken all the best qualities to get a pure white flower with crisp markings, a lovely gold crest in the lip, and it's a very rewarding plant that would love your windowsill. It's fine and cool, but not outdoors, cool to intermediate temperatures and medium light. The arrangement of flowers on Dave's inflorescence is very pleasing, and there's another spike behind it yet to open. It's very nice. This is Dave's nobly type Dendrobium, and he asks if anybody can help him with the ID. Please send him a chat message or email him separately. The nobiles are glorious this time of year with many inflorescences arising directly from the cane, either from leafy or leafless canes. It needs very bright light to bloom this well, and it has to have a dry winter rest for several months. If you don't give it a dry winter rest and you continue watering it heavily all winter, it'll put all of its energy into growing keikis rather than flowering. I know this from experience. This is Dave's Lepotes bicolor. Lepotes is a charming miniature plant with oversized 2-inch blooms, and this is also great for the windowsill grower. It'll do well either mounted, as Dave has it here, or potted in a free draining mix in medium or filtered light in intermediate to warm temperatures. This is another Brazilian species. Roberta Fox shows us her Disa sagittalis. Most of us, when we hear Disa, we think of the notoriously difficult to grow scarlet Disa uniflora, which I show there on the left. But there are actually 187 terrestrial species from Africa to Madagascar in the Disa genus, and most bear no resemblance to the uniflora, except that the dorsal sepal generally forms a hood, as you can see here. Roberta says this one is much easier to keep alive. She's given up on uniflora. She grows it in a terrestrial mix composed of about 85% inorganic, a bit of sand, and the balance is cactus mix or well-draining potting soil. It's in a 5-inch pot with charming 1-inch flowers. And when it finishes blooming, it will start dormancy, and she won't water it again until about August. This is Roberta's Dryadella zebrina, or the zebra-striped Dryadella. So look above the leopard-spotted lateral sepals, look above them, and sure enough, the dorsal sepal is striped like a mahogany-colored zebra. This is a species from Southeast Brazil, Colombia, and Peru, at elevations from 5,000 to about 11,000 feet. So it's a cool grower, cool, damp, and humid. Roberta grows it outside in coastal Southern California. This is a lot of flowers on a small plant. It's very nice. This is Roberta's Jamelia arachnantha, the name arachnantha referring to the spidery flowers, which Roberta says look to her like a little cloud of fragrant stars. It's very fragrant at night. It's from the island of Comoro off the coast of Africa. It's culturally similar to Angraecum. So Roberta grows it in an intermediate greenhouse, and these pristine white flowers are about 2 inches with a 3-inch spur or nectar, as you can see. Roberta shows us Maxillaria densa, a species found in southern and central Mexico and Central America at a range of elevations. Roberta grows it outside in coastal Southern California. She says the plant branches somewhat, but mostly just keeps stacking up the pseudobulbs, as you can see in the left-hand photo. They just keep growing on top of one another. The name densa means crowded maxillaria, and there is indeed a crowd of flowers on the inflorescence arising from the base of newly matured growths. The flowers are about 1/2 inch and they're fragrant. Seeing a lot of fragrant orchids tonight. Kay Klum shows us Angraecum pseudofilicornu, and I looked that up. Pseudofilicornu means the false threaded spur Angraecum. False threaded spur. I don't know what that means. We need Ron Parsons here to tell us what that means. It's similar to Angraecum scodianum, but smaller. The flowers are waxy. They're about 2 inches with a 5-inch apricot colored spur, and they're very night fragrant and long lasting. Kay got this in Madagascar, and it grows in the intermediate greenhouse for her. This is Kay's Angraecum umbrosum, which also grows in the intermediate greenhouse. There's a 3-inch ruler in the middle of the right-hand photo to give a sense of the scale. The name umbrosum means the shadowy Angraecum, which indicates that it's best grown in shady locations. This is Kay's Cattleya Cynthia, which she says she got in Brazil. According to the Baker notes, Cattleya Cynthia was once a common epiphyte in the coastal swamps and riverside forests from the east of Rio de Janeiro to southwest of Sao Paulo. However, clearing land for agricultural use has severely depleted the population of Cynthia. Plants are now found in small numbers in widely scattered locations that have not yet been cleared. The habitat is in a narrow band almost parallel to the coast. It's an intermediate grower, medium light, water year round. So this could be a windowsill candidate. The flower is about 3 to 4 inches, has a beautifully decorated lip. This is Kay's Epidendrum Hugo-Medinae, which she got from Dan Newman of Hanging Garden Orchids in Pacifica. And by the way, Dan will be selling at the June SFOS sale down there. Kay said she had the pleasure of being guided by Hugo in Ecuador. So here he is with his namesake Epi. This is Hugo-Medinae. The flower is about 1/2 inch with purple striation on the sepals and distinct purple markings in the lip. They prefer bright indirect light, warm conditions, so Kay's grows in the intermediate greenhouse. Chani Langland shows us Barkeria spectabilis. Chani is a Barkeria specialist. This is a spring-summer blooming species. It's the most compact of the Barkeria species, and it's found from Mexico down to Nicaragua. While most Barkeria dance around on long inflorescences, some of them up to 3 feet long, the spectabilis keeps its flowers close to the foliage, although above the foliage. The flowers last about a month to 6 weeks, and they're just lovely. Chinese Miltoniopsis amber's charm, cream puff. AMAOS, Miltoniopsis amber by Miltoniopsis Lynne Murrell. This is a complex hybrid, and cream puff is the only awarded clone of it. It received an AM, and we can see why, with a very round, full shape and the clear markings, beautiful front-facing presentation of the flowers. Johnny shows us Epidendrum Pacific Sunset, which is a cross of Epidendrum Pacific Rose by Sun Valley, and it was hybridized by Jim Rose of Cal Orchid in 2005. Many epidendrums can be grown outdoors in the Bay Area, but not these reed-stemmed epidendrums from Cal Orchid. These seem to do well in a variety of light conditions and can keep adding buds for many months. So the so-called reed stem epis have thin reed-like stems, while many of the other epis have fattened pseudobulbs. Cal Orchid in Santa Barbara offers these reed stem epis in a delicious rainbow of colors, and Jim Rose's breeding program is working toward more and more compact plants with larger and more colorful flowers. So check out the website for Cal Orchid. This is not California Orchid in Bolinas. This is Cal Orchid in Santa Barbara. Bill Weaver shows us Cymbidium glorious polypuff. This is an old hybrid, 1964 by Rod McClellan. And this photo shows that it's still one of the loveliest, with clear pink sepals and petals with darker pink markings and splashes. And the flower is very nicely open and flat, which is what we want to see in a Cymbidium, not cupped. Bill's Cattleya Cynthia Quinny Angel Kiss. It does not have a long family tree, but some of the best of the 3 species in its background. I'm guessing that the name Quinny indicates that the Cattleya intermedia, which was used in the cross, was a variety of Quinnii, which we saw earlier from Larry Roberts. I put Larry's photo back up on the left. The Quinnii has semipolaric ruffled splash petals, which I think contributed to this, to Bill's flower. And the deep blue color of this is really beautiful. Bill shows us breasts of Cattleya Cynthia, a lovely primary hybrid of Cattleya digbyana by Walkeriana. You recall that digbyana has the very fringed lip, which we see here in the offspring. And this also shows Walkeriana's big nose, which is typical. This albinistic form, meaning it's nearly white, but it does show some anthocyanin pigmentation in the little pink blush on the lip and at the base of the sepals and petals. This is an unusual color form, and it's beautiful to see it. For smaller Cattleya lovers, Bill Weaver shows us Laelia Cattleya Salsa Roja by Laelia flava. This is an unregistered hybrid with delicious peach and strawberry coloring and a spectacularly ruffled lip. I would love this one in my collection. Jan Anderson shows us Cattleya Irene Finney. It's a hybrid made by Hauserman in 1969 and has most of the big, beautiful Cattleyas in its family tree, as you can see. You see that Jan is growing it up high near her roof, so it clearly needs very bright light to bloom like this. Jan, this is gorgeous. This is Jazzrenathra Storyi. It's a mendacious species from the Philippines where they grow on rocks in the full sun. So this one likes it hot and very bright as possible without burning the foliage. Jan said it was moving in the breeze when she was trying to get the photo, so it isn't as sharp as she would like, but we can certainly appreciate the deep carmine color and the nicely grown plant. Okay, this one hits the top of the applause meter tonight. This is Tanya's very floriferous and Cyclia bractescens. Let's hear the applause.
Wow.
I know, wow. This is a warm growing epiphyte
Wow.
from Mexico down into Honduras in humid forests. But they like to dry out quickly so they can be grown mounted or somewhat pot bound in pots that only have enough room for maybe a year or so of growth. If the pot is too large, it will hold too much moisture and the roots will rot. I know this to be true. These starry flowers are about 1.5 to 2 inches. And this one merits a cultural award. I think Tanya's going to try to take it judging it fully. Paphiopedilums have been underrepresented so far tonight. So here's Tanya's Pathlobotianum. which is from Borneo and Sumatra area, where it grows as a humus epiphyte, meaning that it grows with its roots penetrating thick moss on trees, in pockets of leaf litter, or on boulders or cliff faces with its roots buried in moss or humus-filled pockets, always near water or in areas with heavy rainfall. So that tells us how to grow it, and it likes just dappled light. This is Tanya's Dendrobium Brimbank Gold, an Australian hybrid, which is mostly speciosum. So that tells us it's going to grow into a large and very floriferous plant if it hasn't already. It was registered in Australia in 2015, has received 5 awards to date, all of them in Australia or New South Wales, not in the US. So Tanya is on the cutting edge here in California. And these are 2 more of Tanya's Australian dendrobiums, both with a good deal of speciosum in the background. But each of these has a pretty good dose of tetragonum, which brings more and brighter colors to these hybrids. These are mine. I bought this Masdevallia belladonna from Blaine Manor of Orchids for the People, way up north in Northern California a couple of years ago. And it just keeps putting up more flowers. It's a primary hybrid made by John Leathers in 1992 of Masdevallia datura by Coccinea, both high elevation growers from Bolivia and Colombia respectively. So I grow it in a cool greenhouse with nighttime temperatures in the low 40s. The flowers are about 1.5 inches wide by 4.5 inches long, including those golden caudae or tails. This is my Collagenea sanderi, which I purchased a couple years ago from last month's speaker, Wenqing Perner. This is not the loveliest plant, as you can see, but it's blooming for me for the first time from a new growth. I think the interior of the lip looks like a furnace with hot coals in there. So it'd be interesting to see what pollinator follows those yellow keels or ridges into the depths of fire. It's a species native to Yunnan, China at medium elevations. I grow it in my cool greenhouse with bright indirect light. These are a couple of Sarcochilus hybrids, which Alan Koch recently brought in from Scott Berry in Australia. Sarcos are no longer the sweet little white flowers with red centers that we've all loved. They have gone wild with the breeding programs in Australia. These are just a couple. There are much brighter and deeper reds out there that are nearly psychedelic, and oranges and pinks and purples, oh my. So keep your eye on Sarcochilus. We've not heard from Paul Bourbon in a while. Welcome back to Show and Tell. This is a Zygopetalum that he won at an SFOS raffle, unfortunately with no tag. So if anyone can help Paul and Edith identify this plant, please send him a chat message or email him directly. Zygos are South American genus. They're great windowsill candidates. They can also grow outdoors, protected in the Bay Area, though cold water on the leaves will often make ugly black spots on the leaves. This luxurious lip is about the deepest purple I've seen. And the zygos are all very, very fragrant. So if you love fragrant flowers, this one's for you, Carolyn. Glenn Finch shows us Ascophyllum cherry blossom, which at least for now has been reclassified as Vanda cherry blossom. It's a primary hybrid of Ascocentrum, now Vanda ampulaceum, by Neophonetia falcata, now Vanda falcata. And I believe these 2 renamings are among the most unfortunate because the former nomenclature gave the growers a clear sense of their size, shape, and habit, but the geneticist lumpers are still in ascendancy, so we'll enjoy Glenn's regardless of the name. He says this is actually 3 plants in 1 pot, first time blooming for him. They're from Asca's estate, and they have a lovely light fragrance. Windowsill growers, you would find this very rewarding also. Glenn Finch shows us Vanda Santa Barbara Fizz, which is Vanda suavis by Tokyo Blue. This hybrid was registered by Santa Barbara Orchid Estate in 2013. It gets its beautiful tessellations on the segments, those little squares, from the Cerulean parent. Glenn purchased it directly from Santa Barbara Orchid Estate, and he says it is temperature tolerant. His greenhouse goes to about 48 degrees in the winter. And this is another fragrant orchid. Glenn also shows us Vanda Marziai. This little charmer was recently discovered just in 2012 between 3,600 and 4,800 feet of elevation on Luzon Island in the Philippines, growing among Vanda Marziai, to which it is closely related. Vanda Marziai is still quite rare in collections in the US. It's a cool grower and Glenn's is growing really beautifully on a tall mount. It looks like the tag, he got it from Andy's Orchids. This one gets some applause. This is lovely. And Jeffrey Doney shows us his big, beautiful Paphiopedilum Julius. This is a primary hybrid of Paphiopedilum with Pathlobotianum. We saw Tanya's Pathlobotianum a few slides ago, so I dropped a picture back in there. Jeffrey purchased this at the SFOS show several years ago as a youngster from Brookside Orchids. 5 years later, it's blooming for the first time with 2 big multifloral spikes. Paph Julius is a very sought after hybrid, has over 120 AOS awards on record, and has everything from spots to stripes to a dramatic pouch. Gotta love that. And this is Jeff's buddy Rocket, who really likes pretty pictures. And that's it for tonight. He's reading Orchids Magazine. Thank you all. Continue to be well and grow well. See you next time.
Thank you,
Cute little
Lynn.
fluff bucket.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn.
Great job, Lynn.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful job. That's incredible research and information.
I love doing it. I love doing it. Thank you.